All right, everyone. As usual, I think we're live. I hope we're live. I'm David, developer advocate at Balena, and I'm joined by some familiar faces this week. We are going to be talking about balenaPlant, some IoT gardening magic. Now, as you guys know, I live in Arizona, so the only thing that's going to grow here is going to be a cactus. So I don't know what you're going to teach me, but I'm gonna pay attention. So let's go around the virtual room. I will start off with Andrew. You want to say hello?
Hey everyone, it's Andrew. I help folks at Balena create all kinds of wonderful, magical web content. Glad to be here.
Chris, you're up next.
Hello, Chris here, hardware hacker in residence at Balena. I'm just always hacking on projects and putting things on GitHub for you guys to try out.
Always.
Awesome.
Always hacking.
Is that Freddie Mercury behind you? I can't quite see what that is.
He's mowing the grass. Yeah.
Oh, he's mowing the grass. Okay, maybe later we could get a closer look at him. Alan, you're up next.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Alan, another hardware hacker here at Balena, based outside of Philadelphia.
All right, John.
Hi everybody, I'm John Tonello. I'm not a hardware hacker, but I play one on TV. No, I am technical marketing lead, and I work a lot with this whole crew on spreading the word about cool projects.
Why did I hear the Law and Order theme after you said that? I heard like dun 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 dun.
Maybe because there's like 400 seasons of that. It's everywhere.
I haven't seen a single episode, nor do I know what it is.
We should create a Law and Order tracker so you can avoid it. Maybe.
Chris, don't go down that rabbit hole. Like you said, there's about 400 seasons and there's about 300 episodes in a season. So
I can't
be there a while. No, there's no chance.
There's like 10 different cities now, right?
Yeah.
Which city do they not have a show in?
Yeah. So as I said, we are going to take a dive into balenaPlant today, which should be pretty interesting. But regular viewers will know that I like to start off with a segment called What's on Your Desk? And we have Chris today.
What's on your desk?
Excellent.
That's
excellent. That's how it's supposed to be done. Were you guys taking notes?
Yeah.
I was a particular fan of Andrew's like heavy metal version from a couple of weeks back.
It was
I won't do it again.
And
I heard it was too intense.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the audience.
No worries. Let's stop talking about it.
Yeah. So Alan's already getting buzzed. All right. So who wants to go first? Chris, do you have anything interesting on your desk?
My desk is covered in stuff, so I will go first. It might help if I just grab this camera and point it downwards because it's all it's a whole load of stuff. That's
what are you up to over there?
I have this thing, which is quite cool. It's a nice little USB power meter, which I recently got.
Very cool.
With the little nice fancy little OLED screen that's going to work.
Oops. Okay. Is that?
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
So I've been using it to measure the power consumption of various devices to sort of put together a battery solar powered system. I have the NanoPi, which was released in production on Balena this week. So we're testing the projects on that.
That is
the for scale.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Oh, what's going
on? That is a NanoPi.
Goodness.
Apologies for camera vibration. It's the NanoPi Neo Air.
Neo Air.
Not in focus.
Does it come in rose gold?
I'm not sure.
I think it's tiny. And that is now supported on Balena. Yep.
Yes, it is, as of this week. Yep. And there's a Pi Zero for comparison.
So that thing is really tiny.
That's really small.
Yeah. Do you have any bananas? We need a banana for scale.
I don't have any bananas. I've let the side down. I haven't got any bananas prepared. I'm sorry.
Oh man.
But the cool thing about this is it has a MMC on board, so you don't have to. You can use an SD card to install the OS, but after that you can just pull it out and it runs on the MMC, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
And performance seems pretty good compared to the Pi Zero so far.
Really?
So I have this DAC for it as well, which I'm currently testing with Balena Sound on the Pi Zero before we get it moved to the NanoPi. What else have I got? I've got just a thin. I got a cellular modem for this one to try out. I haven't got it going yet.
Nice.
and these are testing a new upcoming project called balena locating with some BLE beacons.
Awesome.
Oh,
What
and
is
there's
that
the
3D
dude from
print? Yeah,
there's
what
the
is that
dude from
guy?
the etcher. This guy killed your USB stick.
That guy. That's our
We
logo.
may or may
that we-
not be 3D printing little models of them. So if y'all want in, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, put your comments.
So, yeah,
put
It's a whole mess.
put your requests in.
There are
Crystal.
two guys though. There's like the USB stick guy, and then there's the
Yeah,
SD
let me
card
grab
guy.
Yeah,
the
the
link.
SD card guy.
Hold on a minute. I'll grab while you guys. Who's up next? Alan.
can
I don't
go.
know if you're going
Oh,
to be able
Alan?
to top that.
Want me to
Yeah.
go?
I absolutely, I cannot top that. The stuff on my desk is, which is very messy, is pretty mundane this week. I mean, it's cool stuff, but it's probably things that everyone's seen before. I've been testing this Edge TPU, working on it with the Pi 4. It's really cool. That's been a lot of fun. It does some neat stuff. We'll have some upcoming projects that utilize this, but for now, that's one of the items I've been hacking on. And I know this is even more mundane, but I just can't help showing this cool little monitor off that I just got. I mean, it's so cute and tiny. Look how little. But the great thing about this is it has all the different inputs on it.
Oh,
So I
wow.
can use it for
that's
so many
super handy.
different things.
What?
Yeah, it has composite video in. It has
Wow.
HDMI. I believe component and VGA also.
What's the refresh rate on that bad boy?
refresh? I'm not sure about the refresh rate. I think
240
it's
hertz or bust.
No, I don't think so. I think this is basically like a utility monitor, but it has cool little stereo speakers in the back. So
Speakers as well. Look at that.
You know, you never know. It's just great to be able to plug, like, you have a Pi. I already have a bunch of monitors around, but it's great to just plug something like this in, connect it to a camera, whatever. It has the analog input.
Where'd you find it?
This is basically, you can find this on eBay or Amazon has a lot of them. AliExpress. It's pretty standard. I've seen it branded a bunch of different ways. I think this one says Yo-Yo.
Yo-Yo.
Oh, that's my favorite brand.
Shout out. We're not getting paid for that plug.
No,
but
yeah. I'm going to need a link, Alan. You're going to have to give me a link.
Absolutely.
I'm ordering.
Very handy.
Is it small or is it just far away?
It is pretty small. I would say it's maybe 10 inches. It's not too small. Like, it's not like one of those 4-inch screens, but it's really light, and it's easy to just plop down and connect to whatever it is that you need video for. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
John, you have anything?
Yeah, actually, something, you and I did a meetup with some folks from Helsinki the other day, and we were talking about Balena Sense, which there are hats that you can get to run it, which are pretty cool for showing temperature, humidity, and air quality. But if you don't have that, you can run that same project, and I have my little one-wire sensor.
Whoa.
And of course, I put this on a board not long ago, but these sensors are very inexpensive. In fact, they come with a lot of kits. If you got like an Arduino kit or some other mixed bag, small resistor on there, and they call it one wire because this middle wire is sending just temperature data. And if you're thinking about making Balena Sense and you don't have a hat, these work really well, and I've made a whole bunch of these. I plug them in and get.
Oh, is that my frenemy, the DHT11?
No, the DHT11 is actually bigger, and it has the DHT11 will give you temperature and humidity.
Oh, okay.
This is just simple temperature.
Is that a DS18S20 or something?
Yeah, I used to
Or
know.
an
make that up,
18S20.
Did you make that up?
Yeah, he just made that up. That's not a real thing.
The project supports right out of the box the hats that are mentioned and this one-wire sensor, so you can actually mix and match, which David and I did the other day because he had the fancy hat and I had my one-wire sensor, and we were able to connect our devices and deploy the same code, which was cool. But that was my cheap way. Yeah, I did have a DHT11 in that same kit, and I built one using that as well, which is
Yeah.
handy dandy.
What is
So it's a
that?
little retro balena sense.
Oh, the breakout garden.
That's my
I
breakout
thought it was your
garden.
credit card for a moment there.
No, that's
weird
my
credit card.
breakout garden with my 680
Oh,
sitting
yeah, that's right. That's right.
in it. Yeah, this thing is
Nice.
incredible. Love
Oh,
this
that's
thing.
easy peasy.
Chris
I
is
thought
over
I
there.
thought I
Cool
was
what they did
cheating
with the piece of
with
the
my-
artwork.
Yeah. Chris is over there soldering. No way. I just plug mine right in.
Yeah, I thought I was cheating with
What's
the
all about-
automation hat. That's like real easy peasy.
No, that's how it's done. Yeah. All right. Andrew, I
handy.
know you have plenty of stuff on your desk, but I'm going to sneak in and go next.
Yeah, for sure.
So that way we can roll straight from your desk into balenaPlant. So let me see real quick what I've got here.
Ooh,
If this
what is
works. Oh, yeah. This is yet another 96 boards device that showed up.
How many of those do you have now? It seems like every week is a new one.
You know,
He's working on getting 96.
yeah. I think Sahaj is actually watching on the stream as well. I do have quite a collection of them, but I thought I'd do a super fast unboxing. You know that we love unboxings. So let's see what's in here. I actually got this one as a giveaway as part of a contest, which was cool. So let's get that out of the way.
What did you do to win said contest?
I just entered. All I had to do was enter.
Oh, you gave your
It wasn't
info.
really
I thought,
it wasn't really a contest so much as I submitted my name and shipping
Oh,
address.
like not a no
It was
feats
a-
of strength.
No.
Got
It
it.
was a freebie, but that's
That's cool. It's got like its own
Cool.
base.
yeah. So it looks like it's got this big steel plate underneath of it,
Wow.
which I don't know if it's just for show or if that is for actual heat dissipation. I'm not entirely sure. I can see the heat sink. The
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
SOC is on the bottom.
Yeah.
My camera is about as blurry as Chris's today.
all right.
But this is an IMX8 board. So I'll take a look at porting from, I know we have nitrogen IMX8 board from Boundary Devices already supported. So I'll see what I can do about getting this running. But USB 3, went the wrong direction, HDMI,
Wow.
and HDMI on the back. So dual display.
I have a question for you, David.
Yep, go ahead.
Is IMX the form factor?
IMX is the SOC. So it's made by NXP is the brand. There's an IMX6, an IMX7, and IMX8.
Oh, got it.
It's the processor, essentially.
What's the size like classification for that? Because it looks bigger than like other.
This is bigger than a pie. Here's a
Yeah.
pie for scale. So
Please be gentle.
Where's the banana?
pie for scale. It's about 2x.
Is that an ARM processor on there?
Yeah,
I mean,
that is an
it's
ARM,
not a
quad core 64-bit ARM processor sitting down there. So
Look at the passive thermals on that. Is that going to be our Minecraft server?
this could be our Minecraft server, quite honestly. This will suffice.
Oh yeah,
So,
we've been kicking this idea around. So we do have this Minecraft
Yeah.
project. We're wondering who all in the community like has a copy of the game and who'd be willing to help
Yeah.
us test it out. We can kick it up. Yeah, we can kick it up, and then y'all can join and build stuff. And then we can probably use it on a future episode. So think about that.
And they're just saying we should be using the banana pie for scale.
I haven't seen one of those in person. Is it tiny or big?
Isn't it like a Pi Zero type thing?
Banana
Sort of form factor. Yeah,
pies.
I'm not sure.
They come in various shapes and sizes. Banana Pie is the brand name, and then they have different models, some of which are Raspberry Pi form factor. Some are smaller, some are larger, and they use different SoCs, different configurations as well. So,
Cool.
all right. Well, let's switch it on over to Andrew. What do you have on your desk?
Varying sizes of water pumps, apparently. So here's a
Always goes well with electronics.
peristaltic pump right here. Got a couple more. I want to build a fleet out of what this project, or I want to build a fleet out of the project that I'm going to show off today.
Okay.
It's actually a little history. Oh, I'll get into that later, actually. And then in our work chats, we have this like really all this great energy around how to build interesting IoT powered automated hydroponic or aeroponic setups. I think Anuj is on the chat. He's in there. A couple of our other folks are jamming on some ideas, and it got me excited to dust off this larger 12-volt pump. It's the Comet Elegant from Germany. It's basically capable of pumping about 10 liters a minute. So it's decent for like RVs and whatnot when you want to like transfer water around, but it's going to be awesome for a method of hydroponic gardening called the nutrient film technique. So basically you pump water to the top of the system and it trickles down almost like a mini plant aqueduct, and gravity just sends it back to the main reservoir. So you're basically pumping nutrient fluids like fertilized water with like minerals, etc., for the plants. You might have seen it here and there. You see it's basically like the setup where you see the pipes and a bunch of lettuces growing out of it. That's probably nutrient film technique.
That's submersible. Is that one?
Yes, yeah. So it's submersible. I think it needs a mount to be on the bottom of your reservoir, and then this is the tube that's the dowsing side. So it sends the water back up, and then a waterproof cable.
These are all
hopefully
one-way
waterproof
pumps?
cable. What's that?
These are all one-way pumps, Andrew? They're not
one-way
reversible,
pump.
right? Okay.
Yeah, one way. So the idea is that you have to automate it because you can't run these things for more than like 10, 15 minutes at a time. You'll burn it out. So, that could be a fun little automation challenge. I mean, I know there are a lot of those things already out there, but to do it balena style, I think will be the fun part.
Chris, I see Sahaj had a comment come in about why not mine test.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
Open source and runs well on ARM. So I don't know that one. We may have to take a look into that.
Yeah, I was just quickly looking at the website and the GitHub. It looks quite cool.
Yeah.
What is Andrew describing how they were harvesting human? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. That's correct. Got it. Nailed it, Anuj. So
you know which pill I took.
Your pump looks a lot like the pump in my cat watering auto water feeders, which are small impeller submersible motors that are designed to run continually.
Oh, cool.
And they're pretty cheap. In fact, when I wanted to replace one, I think it was about $10 or less. And it has little suction feet on the bottom,
nice
as well. Yeah. But it's similarly set up so you have the obviously the water flows around it from the sort of the bowl that it's in, but then it has the pumps up through a spout like that, and it actually produces quite a bit of water turnover that might be good for this purpose.
I wonder if it's enough to push water out of multiple sprayers, though. I think that requires a bit more pressure. Like, it's kind of ridiculous because Sean, our product leader, I think he ordered like 100 psi pump.
I saw that. That's crazy.
It's like,
I was like,
paint removal.
It's gonna blow out. We'll see.
What kind of cat feeder is this thing that you're running over there, John?
It's a cat waterer, and actually what it does is it comes up and it has the thing that looks like a daisy, which is actually a slotted top. So the water comes up through and then streams out 8 different little streams.
Is that how you make cats grow? You have to water them.
It is.
Yeah.
And interesting, they turn water into whiskers and
cat water
into fur, and I turn water into human.
Have you reverse engineered it yet, John?
Yeah, he's already tacked it and taken it all apart. It's now internet connected, I'm sure.
Yes.
I do want to do motion detection, just to not burn out extend the life of the motor.
Good idea. All right. Well, let's do some learning. Let's do some IoT gardening.
I think
we can dive in.
Cool.
IoTG.
Yep, some IOG.
All right.
Diving in.
Self-navigating OBS and StreamYard. It's fun. All right. So this project is called balenaPlant Saver. I think we're all going to name it balenaPlant in the end here. We're still working on it. But the idea here is that it's a really simple way to grab Raspberry Pi, some affordable sensors, and kick up a way to automatically water your plants. You can set a watering target moisture content percentage. So like you use the soil moisture sensor to monitor that, set a threshold so you're not overwatering, and also tinker with a delay in the pump so that you're not always watering it, but the pump will check like, hey, have I watered since over the last like 15-30 minutes, hour, or whatever. There are enough protections there to make sure that you're actually watering your plant and not killing it. you can do what I did and practice with a pretty hardy plant that can be over or underwatered, like a bamboo. I mean, this thing's still alive over here. Let me switch views. Here you go. So here it is, all set up. Y'all can check out the repo too if someone wants to.
Yeah,
link
I've got
to the
repo on the screen. Let me turn the banner off. I'll grab a copy paste and drop it into chat for everyone.
Right on. So here's all the gear. We got I'm using a Pi 4 with an automation hat. You can do it more hardcore with your own wiring. I think Chris has a version of that on the original forum post where I learned of this project. So check that out too.
Yeah, my original plan was kind of do it with like the discrete parts to keep the cost down, but the automation hats is like a super easy way to get up and running because it's got all the parts you need on one board.
Yep. We have a DHT22 over here, monitoring temperature and humidity. We've got the capacitive soil moisture sensor over here. Whoa, webcam alert. We have the Dow. Oh, do you guys see this? Watch this. I pulled it out for just a moment, and it's already running.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's I have it set pretty aggressively for testing and for demoing. So the minute that sensor was like, oh, it's dry, it kicked in and started pumping water out of here. Yeah. Nothing special, just some regular old tap water. And then what's monitoring whether or not you have enough water is this float switch over here.
So that's so it can alert you that you need to fill your reservoir back up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Looks like you're close.
Yeah. Well, here's the float switch up close. I have one on my desk. Yeah. Real simple. Oh. Basically, gives you you can program like what you want it to say, but in the context of this project, if you have enough water, it's like this. If the reservoir goes down and it actually switches off, it'll let you know. And you can
see that an expensive part? How much?
Oh no, not at all. You can get like 6 for like $5, or maybe like 6 for 10 cents on AliExpress. I don't know. Chris is really good at AliExpress. So
yeah,
AliExpress is my favorite. As long as you don't want your parts within the next 2 months, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not good at planning. I want my parts immediately.
How does it alert you when you're out of reservoir water?
Well, we don't cover that in this guide, but what we do is we unlock the Grafana permissions. So like you can actually go in and set your own alerts here.
I mean, does it buzz or email you or it just shows you in the dashboard?
Oh, you can see the water level in the application tags. Or actually, you can see a set of warnings here, the moisture level.
But you could set up Grafana to email you or like anything Grafana can do with a web alert. I think they've probably got webhooks and MQTT and all sorts of things.
Yeah. And it's pretty robust at this point. Like I went down that rabbit hole for a little bit and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to set up a bot, set up an email server set? I was like, you know what? I'll just finish making the project and the users can figure that part out. But we're definitely down to probably add that at some point here. So here's a dashboard that you can access either locally or have the public URL using Balena's VPN magic. And here you can see the current soil moisture level. So it's okay because it's within the parameters that we've set code-wise. I have enough water. The pump isn't working. And then you can set this time series over whatever. I did 2 hours. We can do like over a whole day if you like. I set this up late last night, so it doesn't have a full day of data yet, but just showing off how much visibility you get in all your plant data.
So now all of this that you're showing right here is already in the GitHub repo turnkey out of the box, or did you then, once you do a git clone and a balena push, you then manipulated Grafana, or does that kind of come with it?
It's fully ready to rock. Assuming you're building this kit. So like any newer balena project, we're very specific about what you need to get it started. Yep. But assuming you're building the same thing, or you're building the more robust setup that's in the forum here, someone feel free to grab that forum link there. It's really great because it actually walks back through like it was a year ago, I believe, when Chris and another balena colleague embarked on this mission to water the of course the snake plant named Python.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I miss Python.
Where is Python right now?
Python's still in San Diego.
Oh wow. But yeah, you go through all the adventures here. So I really just picked up this project after I'd started. I met Chris, and I was talking to him and asking him, "Hey, what are some really interesting projects?" And he showed me this one. I'm like, "This is exactly in my up my alley." My wife's the better gardener, but I like to dabble in hydroponics. I find it just really fascinating. So if I switch over to here, I could show off a little bit of the why. This is not a Roma tomato plant in soil. It's actually in a bucket full of nutrient fluid, and it is growing massively.
Wow.
This actually came from, so it's about 3 feet tall now. I have its sibling. I don't have a good picture of it though. Its sibling that's in soil, and it's only about the size of the length of my hand. So it shows the massive difference and potential that hydroponics can give plant growth. This actually came from this really weird dare. Chris and I are watching YouTube videos, and I saw this video of a guy who threw a tomato slice in some soil.
Oh yeah.
and grew like one plant. So I was like, hey, I can do that. And then Chris was like, all right, I'll try it. And like I would report every other week of what grew, and we ended up with 10 starts out of this like salad serving slice of tomato.
You just threw literally a tomato slice in the dirt. And just
this was earlier or late spring, so we ended up gifting a lot of them to some friends for various reasons, mainly because we missed them because we can't see them because of COVID. But it's kind of wild that like all those gifts came from what would have just been a afterthought on a salad. Here's some mustard leaves that are growing from hydroponic containers. So I guess I could segue to like why this project is so fascinating to me. I mean, the main part of it is really just monitoring soil moisture and automating the watering. But it opens up all these possibilities to do things like hydroponics, or perhaps even aeroponics or aquaponics, even, because you have this base way of setting up a pump. It could pump water, it could pump air if you want. You can monitor temperature, humidity, which is important in all kinds of setups. And with balena, fleet management magic, you can really scale things up. I mean, I know there are like, these projects are a dime a dozen out in the Arduino world and whatnot, but what I'm excited about is that I can create a whole fleet of these, have n number of devices throughout my garden monitoring all these different plants and in different methods and ways that I want to raise them.
So speaking of the scaling and out in the garden, now you need some sort of connectivity then, correct? Because we're looking at, is that Grafana running, that's running on the Pi itself directly. So if you're sitting in your office, maybe your garden is not too far away from the house and you can reach, but if you kind of extrapolate that out and you start thinking about mass scale farming, what would something like that look like then for connectivity? Is that where you start to creep into LoRaWAN territory, or just sort of Wi-Fi extension, or how does that play out in the bigger picture?
I feel like it's based on your appetite on how much you want to hack, right? Like, so like I said earlier, like this is super early days. So this is like a plant inside your house. So perhaps even like maybe an indoor soil grown tomato plant or herbs or something like that. But yeah, I think this is the best group to have on board, because I think we all cover different varieties of how to solve for that. I think for me, like I'd want to do something along the lines of a project that I saw Phil working on, where he's basically making this waterproof balena speaker and Wi-Fi repeater project for his garden. His focus there is mainly to entertain and give internet connectivity to his kids when they're out playing. But that same premise, if you can have a waterproof Pi out there with a bunch of sensors going on and strong enough Wi-Fi to talk back to home, like you open up a couple doors there.
Yeah, that's true. Or alternatively, then I have to wonder now, you lose pressure the further you go, but with enough tubing, you could keep the Pi inside on your desk and the pump and literally all the equipment, right? And wouldn't you be able to, again, with long enough wire for the sensors? I mean, yeah,
well, let's take
really
this hydro setup for instance, right? Like, what if I modded the balenaPlant to track? I mean, kind of similar to this bamboo that's over here, right? I'm actually misusing this this sensor. It's supposed to be sensing this moisture content in soil. I'm using it as like a water line indicator, right? So I'm totally cheating. But basically, if the water line's not there, then it'll say, "Hey, I'm too dry," which is bad in a hydro setup, because that basically means a lot of the roots are exposed to air. They're not drinking enough water. So there's ways to hack this to adapt to that. But a setup like this, you can have inside. You can grow a lot also vertically as well. So in my garage, it's too messy to show off. But I have a lot of I have a whole rig of hydroponic plants growing, enough to actually make to harvest. So here's another picture. This was early days. So these tomatoes. Am I still on the right screen? Yeah,
you're on tomatoes. Yeah.
All right. All these plants are huge now. Some of them I've already eaten. Unfortunately,
some of them no longer exist.
I have yet to hook up balenaPlant to monitoring my hydro setup. That's the next step for sure.
Well, this is where we got into discussing like how we can build different profiles for different types of plants, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Chris brings up a really good point, because the way you water, say, microgreens is a lot different. Microgreens requires a very persnickety way of watering, especially at the start. And you're only really monitoring these for about a week, because they grow in like 7 days, right? So to Chris's point, it's like, imagine you had a setting in balenaPlant to have different types of plants. Actually, so when we were troubleshooting, I'll just show off a couple more pictures here.
Yeah.
Before I get into my troubleshooting story. So all these are, as Tomas would say, balena dumb plants, as in like there's no IoT connectivity yet. But there are a lot of conditions here that need to be met for all these seedlings to grow. The starts to actually be successful. Oh, here's the slice. So right, this was plant 1, and then it was just so funny. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just wild. It all came from that one little salad slice. Oh, and here's me with the first harvest, 2 ounces of mustard greens that I immediately turned into pickles. Folks on Reddit really liked this one. They wanted the recipe more than they cared about the story, I think. Yeah, troubleshooting wise, it's fascinating, because I actually killed my succulent when we were trying to get this to work. I was also volunteering the project, so Rahul and Chris could figure out. I don't remember what y'all were figuring out. It was pretty cool though, where you were like remotely getting my device data.
Yeah, I think it was, we were playing with Industrial IO Linux kernel modules.
Yeah, very cool. Anyway, while we were doing that, we were testing, and I overwatered my succulent. So I actually made a mistake and didn't have this set up proper, and didn't take into account.
Unrelated to the kernel modules.
Yeah, unrelated. Kernel modules were great. What happened is that because this just has one profile of like a soil-based plant with a high moisture threshold, we need different ways other than, you can set those, and we can set those via device variables, but I think, in the future, we definitely want profiles of plants, because then you can have like normal house plant mode, bamboo mode, succulent cactus mode, and hydroponic garden mode. Who knows? And then the community can contribute those profiles to us as they use it and learn more.
Yeah, because it's kind of like you want to build a custom profile for each type of plant, don't you? Because you could, like some I could see, you could say have like a specific moisture level, and you basically say maintain it at that level constantly. But then others, you might be like, oh, I want it to drop down to 20% and then like go up to 80 and then let it drop all the way down again to like give that kind of cycle. And it's like all kind of variations like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do they make manifolds for, splitting out your watering that are controllable? Do you know what I mean? So that, like a lawn sprinkler system has a manifold back at the house that, sends water. Do they have things like that at this scale that you can use?
I would expect so.
Yeah.
Because you could get like just like solenoid water valves, couldn't you? And then you could just put a load of them together, and you could.
But they
make your
just
own
do on
manifold.
and off, right? And like with a
Yeah.
rough measurement.
Right. Because you don't want to, have like a Duff beer manifold that just sends water out all. But I could see that, mixing, because you could mix and match and maybe ID each solenoid as part of, a different group of plants or individual plants.
Yeah.
You totally could. You could have like the pump driving all the manifold and then switch on individual outputs depending on which plant they were connected to.
Yeah. It seems like it'd be very efficient.
Sounds like you need to get some solenoid valves, Andrew.
Why does this always happen?
Yeah,
And a load of paperwork.
There we go. Next steps. Before we have those profiles, I mean, what I like to think through that really inspires me to keep hammering on this is just the fleet aspect and how we could, if you know a majority of your plants need a certain condition to grow, you can set those as your like environmental variables. And then if you have specific plants on specific devices that are more sensitive, you can hone in with specific device variables. And having that flexibility for now is pretty inspiring to me, because then I can manage all my plants on one app. And if I add a plant or my wife wants to add a plant, it's, we're not have to go through all that rigmarole. And I can imagine someone in a more like production commercial situation would want something like that too. I mean, or you DIY everything, from scratch every single time, but that doesn't seem too fun.
I could see an always AI balena application where you could focus on the size of the fruit to elude you.
Or brown leaves. Alan, do you want me to restart machine learning the color of my bamboo here?
Yeah,
Alan, get on it.
Get on it, man.
I was thinking a feedback loop would be awesome for this, so the system knows how well the plant is doing, and you could probably, with a camera aimed at the plant, just count how much green is in the, in the frame, and how much that changes over time.
Yeah,
we're getting way out there, but is that something you had in mind, Andrew? Some kind of feedback so the system knows, hey, this plant's doing better, or it's not doing great.
Yeah, we're starting to get out of my skill set, my comfort zone. But when I'm sketching, I want that. I want some sort of learned module or library of like what's successful or what to look out for. I just moved. Let me go back. I moved some plants outside.
So we had a question from Carlo in the chat, which you might.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to let you finish that thought real quick, Andrew, but I do want to.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So Carlo is asking, Carlo's from ARM, is there a database somewhere that can guide us in how much water to feed to specific plants? So how do you know, okay, look, a tomato needs this much water, some lettuce needs this much, bamboo needs this much? Like where does that knowledge come from?
Yeah, I would love, and maybe this exists and I haven't looked hard enough because I'm like a novice gardener. Like almost like the MDN of like gardening standards, like Mozilla developer Eric, right, where like everyone cheats to go like figure out their front end stuff. Not cheats, learn. But I love standards like that, or even like open source public data, or like imagine you had like a YAML file of your whole garden setup by like plant, by crop, by season. Like that'd be pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean,
because right now, I mean, like honestly, I googled ideal tomato soil because I thought, oh, maybe I'll bring in one of the tomato plants to use as a demo, and like the top 3 or 4 hits are like just OG green thumb people. They're like, oh, you want to measure your soil? No sensors. You dig up the earth and you crumble it in your hand. And if it
That's what
sticks
I
to your
was-
hand, then there's enough soil, there's enough
Yeah.
water. And I'm like, I can't do that with
That's
my
what I was going to
sensors.
say. I mean, you go out and you ask a farmer, they'll tell you, "Oh, yeah, this many liters per acre is the optimal." But boy, that's not going to.
That's like Mars rover technology.
Yeah. If someone knows of it though in the chat, feel free to link it. I mean, I haven't looked hard enough. I'd love to know because it's kind of a pain when you're like, not a pain. I think there's some joy in that kind of housekeeping too. But there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of thinking that goes into stuff. My wife's doing right now with our crops outside. It's like got to start. It's August and you're starting to think about October, right? And like, how do we lower that friction, whether it's for the home gardener or like the commercial grower at scale?
You talked about some of the nutrients. Do you do pH measuring and things like that? Like, how does that factor into like plant food?
Yeah, there are a lot of pH sensors available for microcontrollers and microprocessors. I have only been messing with like perhaps lab grade stuff. So while the one mission is like, hey, keep it simple and make it easy for the user, it's like when you have to clean a pH tester every single time you use it, or turbidity sensor, it's like, okay, maybe there's a better way to do this. I think Anuj, if you're still on, he's been going through the same pain points that I've been going through. It can be done, but then it's like it starts to become more work, right? Where I have a battery powered pH tester where I'm like, dunk it in, hit the button, and now I have my information. But I think there are some parts coming out that might be more susceptible or usable for always on environments. I think Sean, our colleagues, looking into some of those. It does get pricey though, so all of a sudden you're out of the what Chris was talking about with these projects. Like, how do we do something really neat and helpful like this within like an affordable range, right? And all of a sudden you start adding in sensors, and it's like, okay, what value am I really getting from said sensor?
Yeah,
Cheaper
so wait a minute.
Cheaper to hire a neighborhood kid.
Yeah.
So that's a good point because I asked about that float device, but let's come back to our bill of materials in that GitHub repo. That if you if you follow exactly, what does the cost look like for this entire setup out of the box, precisely as you have it with those sensors and devices there? Are we talking $100 US, $1,000 US? Are these what are just
definitely
generic
like
price
a little
ranges
over
here?
100, assuming you get a Pi for cheap.
Okay.
The automation, so the partial hat is actually like discontinued soon, so I need to overhaul this guide once like the regular hats come in. You'll have to ask Pimaroni about why that happened.
I can't believe they discontinued that one. It's so handy.
I know, it's so cute. The DHT22s are pretty cheap, and you buy them in bulk, so which is nice when you're doing when you want to do more of a fleet build of these. Same with the soil moisture sensor. Oh, hold on a second. Didn't know that could happen. My webcam that's being used to demo can also still receive calls.
Huh.
Technology, everyone.
Yeah, did not realize that was a possibility.
The pumps vary. I don't know if it's because of recent events with like all these people getting into like projects and whatnot, but like I see that the costs have gone up a little bit since like if you compare to like a year ago. And then float switches are pretty cheap too. And then of course, Balena Cloud is free for the first 10 devices. Right. Etcher's free. And if you want, you can hack on stuff with Balena CLI, which is also free.
Sure.
Yeah, just a very important ingredient here. Don't forget the water when you test.
Okay.
Otherwise,
depending on where you live, that might not be free. I live in the desert. Water is very expensive here.
That's true. Well, actually, so you might be very interested in the hydro setup because the people who benefit most, especially if you look at like, I'm just clicking around on Reddit and whatnot, it's people who live in the drier climates that have trouble, watering their yards. I mean, if you can have it in an enclosed container like this, and it's highly optimized for the plants to be drinking that water and using all those nutrients, it's a very feasible way to grow a lot of crops. So that's what inspires me as well, is how do we add a bit more automation and usability to a process that can be pretty tricky. I think the Kratky method here, which is like pour a liquid into a container and put a seedling plant's roots in it, is pretty low effort, but it can cause problems as well if you're not monitoring things like, I don't know how much water all 5 of these plants will drink at the same time. I have no way of looking in there without lifting the container, which then jostles the plants, which then harms the roots. So if I had like the sensors in there, it's one less chance to harm the plants and more chances to understand what's going on, how they're growing and whatnot.
Is it important that the roots are kept in the dark?
Yeah. To inhibit algae growth. So algae is either toxic to certain plants or will just compete for nutrients. I actually have a set of plants in the garage that I neglected. It's on like this tube setup, and like there's algae and there's spindly, which means like they're small and like stretchy. It's not a successful batch, and you can kind of tell just by looking. If I had, segueing back to Alan's comment about the cameras and whatnot, I mean, so actually these plants in particular I brought outside, and what I would have loved was having like a camera on it to identify this kind of mildew that plants can get when they're crowded. I mean, it was my bad too. I overcrowded a bunch of leafy plants instead of like doing plants at different heights. But this mildew can grow and spread, and little bugs that fly around your plants can like get them on their feet and spread them too. So if you can track that and have a means to machine learn and capture that, like, oh, you have mildew here ahead of time, that'd be awesome, because then you can go out, maybe you get a notification or something, and you can go out and like tend to them. Or when you do hydroponics, there are all kinds of conditions as well, of like, if you have too much nutrient in your nutrient solution in your fluid, you'll burn the plants out. Or if they're too close to the light, you'll burn them out. So you'll get like brown colored or like even white colors. So tracking that would be interesting too. So you can get ahead of like your plants overgrowing and potentially dying.
Well, speaking of lights, Andrew, is lighting something else if you're doing this indoors that you'd want to control with a system like this?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe in a future episode when I get my relay stuff correct, I can do like a pump and LED setup. So imagine this bamboo was a vegetable, a leafy green. I mean, this bamboo doesn't need a lot of light, right? So like the sunlight during the day is enough to water it. But if I want a super growth with like a lettuce, I can hook up some LED grow lights to this, and then all of a sudden that's a new avenue of automating timing. Some people will just leave their plants on all day long. I think a lot of a lot of vertical tech farms do this because, the plants don't really know any better. They're like, yummy. I got delicious nutrients in my roots and all this yummy fake sunlight. Great. Some people coddle their plants like, no, it has to be like 8 hours on and then 4 hours of darkness, 8 hours of light. Like whatever your mode, whatever your path to success is, I feel like, yeah, that kind of automation would be really helpful.
Interesting.
There are some challenges though, hydroponic fruiting plants have the challenge of, in a soil context, it's a lot more closer to like maybe the way that they want to grow. So then they flower, they pollinate, and then they create fruit. I'm experiencing this right now with slow peppers and tomatoes, where like the blossoms will open and then they'll drop, right? So that's another learning opportunity of like what's going on, because everything could look totally fine on paper here. Like let me switch view. I've got plenty of water, temperatures are fine, they're met, but like nutrient wise, I think that's another nut to crack. And that's could be like turbidity sensors. So like contents of the water, maybe if you have too much stuff in your water, it depends on the stuff you use. But when I use this stuff called Master Blend that you can find on Amazon or your local gardening store, it turns the water greenish, right? So maybe you can tell if like there's less of the content in there because the water goes back to a clear state. So perhaps a sensor that can identify turbidity really well would be very helpful there. But yeah.
So how do the normal turbidity sensors work? Sorry.
Well, I didn't get mine working, but I think the theory is that it runs a current and gives you back a voltage depending on how much light's bouncing around. So when you're using the sensor correctly, with the correct math, you should get a voltage for like pure water. And then as the water gets cloudier and cloudier, it'll send back the opposing voltage. And then you calibrate that to your charts to tell you like how clean or dirty your water is. A lot of people successfully use these when they're monitoring rivers to see, you know, how clean or dirty the water flowing can be.
So in that situation, if the water was loaded with nutrients, it would be kind of cloudy or something, so the sensor could detect it, and then it would go clearer as the plants use the nutrients.
Yeah, so there'd be a little bit of thinking there to kind of put it on its head, because usually you're tracking if the water gets dirty or cloudy, right, as perhaps a bad thing. But in this case, it's not. It's more just a condition, and that might even be thrown to the wayside with some nutrient supplements that leave the water completely clear. There are a lot of organic hydroponic solutions out there that, you know, once they're mixed into the large volume of water, you can't tell. Right, or throw in like aquaponics, where you have like that's the setup. You Google these on YouTube all day long. It's like you have fish in the tanks eating food, they're pooping, they're creating nutrients. That nutrients being pumped back to plants growing elsewhere. Yep. Those plants are eating, I mean, all that, you know, and then it filters back clean water to the fish. And you know, that's a whole set of other conditions to be defined with like a turbidity sensor, a pH sensor,
whole different ecosystem.
Yeah, but super fun, right?
In the first scenario that you just described, whether the water should be cloudy or should be clear, depending upon the solution you're using, I have to wonder, Alan, better get to work. I have to wonder if you could use some camera and machine learning there. I don't know how sensitive of a camera you would need to sort of detect what that opaqueness is, but if you can try to monitor that, would be pretty cool.
Aren't there some sensors that use electrical resistance to determine what's in the water as well, based on the presence of certain minerals or absence of?
So we had some questions roll in, Andrew, while you were talking. Jason hopped in and is asking, is there an existing sensor that could tell the difference between polluted water versus nutrient-rich water?
Oh, that might be really similar to what John was just mentioning, like the more lab grade, like I'll sense like the actual contents of what is going on. Like that's out of my price range for sure. The one that I have is like, is it dirty or not? I think that'd be pretty neat. I don't know if anyone else on the chat has used it.
What you'd want is to detect for nitrates, wouldn't you? I know, like back from fish keeping, you would always watch for nitrates, and that would be the nutrients that the plant uses.
Yeah. I mean,
but
like,
is there something
one of the main ones? I think it's like, nitrogen, calcium, and potassium, right? And then like 20 other like smaller scale nutrients that they need.
Yeah, and then Arajit had hopped in at some point. Welcome, Arajit. And he was asking about, could you use the Seed Studio Grove sensor kit? That's the Grove sensors are, Chris, I might need some help here, but isn't that an interconnection standard that they use? So like you can get Grove temperature and humidity, Grove motion detection, Grove, so on and so forth. Yeah. It's just the whole ecosystem around that protocol, or not protocol, connection.
Yeah, it's like the connectivity. So it's still like I2C and SPI and things like that underneath. So as long as you had a method to connect those wires up to Raspberry Pi pins, you could use that too.
Gotcha. So it's not out of the box in our GitHub repo, but it could be built, right? I see it, Andrew.
I'm cheating. I'm basically emulating if it was super dry.
If you remove it from the water, it kicks on. Super cool.
Hey, Andrew, I'm not familiar with the automation hat, but is there much space left on there? Could you plug more stuff into that?
Yeah, I have 2 of the ADC ports open, 2 of the input ports open on it. But I'm using the relay for the pump.
Okay, so just one relay on board?
Yeah, I ordered the bigger brother of it, so I'll definitely report in on how much more we can add to that. But I think I didn't have a problem adding the other sensors to this board. I mean, I just user error. I just didn't get them to work. But the only thing I had to do is, because there's only one 5-volt terminal, I grabbed a breadboard and just used it as a means to have a little easier access to power.
Jason came back with a spectrograph. Spectrographography. That's not a word. I don't know if that's something that's readily available. Can you get that
Maybe-
on AliExpress?
for hobbyist
Ever seen
gardeners.
that? Yeah, Chris will know how to get some of that.
I'm going to
He's
hit the
no
Googles.
Yeah, maybe a spirograph.
problem.
So because I have it set to 60% moisture content plus 15 threshold, it's not going to run because it's well over. I mean, this is also like a really like brute force test because it's a bowl full of water and not like soil.
Yeah. Sahaj has
We can move it to a live plant though, and see if it over soaks it or not. Let me get mine set up proper here. Go ahead.
While
David.
while you're doing that, while you're moving that around, Sahaj got a good idea here, which is if you're talking about particulate pollutants, you can use a light intensity sensor to detect how murky the water is. Would that? So now, I'm not familiar with that part. Light intensity detector must have some sort of camera setup involved, or is that some sort of device? I don't know how that would work.
Just a photoresistor, maybe.
Yeah, I think
like
that's how the
a-
turbidity sensors that we were talking about work, I think.
Yeah.
A light shining on one side and how much comes through and is detected on the other side. Yeah,
exactly.
gotcha.
Yeah,
All right.
that reading would be like, yeah, it's super subjective, right? So what we were talking about earlier, it's like, what material are you using? You know,
So you'd have to take a reading like when it was at your desired level and then sort of monitor it from there in like a relative scale rather than absolute one.
All right, let's see what's going on here. So we have it set to default. Oh, there we go. Go, little guy, go.
And I shot JR was asking, we mentioned pH earlier. Are there such things as pH sensors out there?
Yes.
Chris, get on AliExpress.
Well, Andrew and I were just discussing this the other day, weren't we?
pH sensors?
Yeah. Because it's like, there's those one, oh, you go ahead, Andrew, you know more than me.
That's what I was mentioning earlier, where like, it depends on the grade that you get, because I mean, you can buy a $10 battery powered sensor that you use by hand. Or you start to go into like what's meant for microcontrollers and microprocessors, and all of a sudden there's this whole spectrum of quality. It's like you can get them and they can plug in and give you data, but you have to highly maintain them, right? You have to like wipe off the glass ball after every usage and things like that. So it's like how much of that is actually automated. But we're starting to see like a different expensive scale of pH testers for like Raspberry Pis that are meant to be more like always on.
Yeah, it's the difference between ones where you just put the probe into the water and take a reading versus the ones where you leave the probe in the water continuously and monitor over time, isn't it?
Yeah.
All
so let's see
right.
if this ends up overwatering or not. So hold on a sec. Let me switch over to the dashboard.
Is that pumping right now then?
Yeah, it should pump again after 6 cycles of counts because we're under the threshold. So I have it set to be 60 to 75%. And we're at 57.1 in actual soil. So this is like we're not cheating this time. So yeah, we'll see if our little homie can get auto watered the way we want it to.
Yeah, that's.
And then go ahead.
What kind of plant is that?
This is a Thai basil seedling,
Which can be very sensitive. Like herbs generally are very sensitive.
Oh, totally.
To the growing environment.
Yeah, and that's why I like the ample ways to like customize with here, because a benefit of watering with like a little dowsing tube is that you don't waste water, right? You can target exactly where you want it's like drip lines in gardens, right? Rather than like watering everything with a yard sprinkler. So you can direct inject where you want, but in this case we have a little more we get a little more precision.
And you control how long. You said 6 cycles, so a cycle.
That's aggressive, yeah.
Certain number of minutes,
like 2 minutes or something. You can fiddle around with it. I think the way that Chris had it set by default which I think is the way that it downloads stock on the repo. It's like 15 minutes, which is probably fine when you're not testing. But like, I don't want to sit and wait 15 minutes.
Right.
So I used the device variable just to switch the pump delay count to something much lower. So,
Gotcha.
how is the soil sensor holding up? So far, so good. In the forum, I think a little pro tip from Chris and former colleague Dan is to make sure you waterproof the exposed electrical stuff. So I went with the Dan route and used nail polish from my own private collection.
Nail polish is waterproof? I didn't know that.
For this case, it's enough to like protect. Chris used like good old American Rust-Oleum rubber spray.
I can't remember what it was, but I think there's so many different types of soil sensors, and some of them just expose the copper contacts and pass current through it, so they corrode really fast. But this one you've got here is a capacitive one, which should last a lot longer.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. So it doesn't need. You can paint over it without impacting its performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what Chris did in the forum. It was like plus minus
it changed it a little bit
of value.
It's relative, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But those ones you get like 2 prongs, and it's just like exposed PCB track, and it just corrodes really fast because it's just exposing the copper to the moisture.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of potential inaccuracy, if you're using automation hat, you also add like plus minus 1%, I think is what it says to your readings. Might be a little off, so just FYI.
On which one? The automation hat?
Yeah, I think any hat adds. Gosh, the sense hat. Jeez.
Yeah. the sense hat that thinks the humidity is 50 to 60% here, which is only about 50 to 60% too high.
Oh man.
But so we had go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I think we're on the same page. Go for it.
I was going to say, so we had a question roll in. Arajit is asking, can he use a balena fin with some generic soil sensors? And quite honestly, based on what you've shown, Andrew, I think it would be pretty much turnkey out of the box. Swap a Pi 3. Is that a Pi 3 I think you're using there for a fin? Because the fin has the GPIO headers. It's going to run the same software stack similar to a Pi.
I'm using a 4.
Is that a 4? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we've tested. No, I used a 3 before something happened to it. So yeah, it works on a 3. 4. Chris uses on a 0. If you have a fin and you want to test on a fin, feel free. If any community member wants to test on a device that we don't have, go for it. You can hit us up. You can contribute what you learn on the project repo, or you can go to the forums, help us out there. But yeah, I saw a couple of you talk about like, what was it? I saw Jerry wants to do a drip line project. Sounds like RG had. Yeah, I mean, why not, right? Especially when you're basically creating conditions to grow, not just outside. So if you're in an area where you're approaching like the fall winter season or whatever, I mean, you can do whatever you want when it's indoors, as long as you have the correct conditions for it. So that's another exciting part of this. It's like unlocking little ways to produce food or grow, aesthetically pleasing plants with a lot more control.
Yeah, really cool. It gave us lots to think about.
Right on.
Yeah. So looking at the clock, I see we're a little over the top of the hour. Any other questions? Saw a lot of good questions and interaction from the community. Thanks everyone for dropping them in here. Is there anything else that we haven't covered? Let me see here. I don't see any other questions.
There's a question. Is there a difference between the capacitive and resistive sensors in their readings?
I guess it's because it's all relative. It doesn't really matter too much because you're measuring a difference or a change in the moisture level. So they could be entirely different, but you wouldn't compare a resistive one against a capacitive one, I guess.
If you swapped it out for this project, you just have to change the variable for the voltage or the voltage math.
But yeah, it's like we have the forum thread going, so it'd be good to see some of you guys join us in the forum thread and post your projects, and if you decide to try it out.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Along with that, we've had a lot of community members interested in writing about their projects using Balena or why they use Balena. They're very awesome to read, and some of them that we feel are very exciting, we end up actually guest publishing on our blog. So if anyone out there is interested in doing that, hit us up. I mean, you can drop a line here, you can go to our forums, you can email, whatever. We're always down to taking contributions because we want to see how other folks are using it. We use it and talk about it all day long with ourselves, but we want to know how the community is adopting and utilizing Balena. So
yeah, absolutely. So any projects you folks are working on, by all means, reach out, hit us up. We can, work on a joint publication.
Yeah.
I just put on
or even if you don't like it and there's something going on, we want to hear those stories too.
Yeah.
Seriously, like we need to know. How people are adopting Balena, where our product's coming up short. Like, be honest with us. We love that.
Post
It
your
only helps us
rants on
make
the
a
forum.
Yeah, here you go. No one's ever done that before. Yeah.
But I just put on screen. I just put on the forum thread for this project for balenaPlant. So yeah, if you guys end up building, and especially if you're using other devices and whatnot, let us know how they worked out. Post some pictures and let's see those plants.
Repo's a work in progress. We'll keep hammering on it, but what's there should be more or less useful.
Yeah, it'll get you going.
But yeah, huge thanks to Chris. I mean, this is him and our former colleague Dan. I really just grabbed the baton and am running to the finish line that I saw Chris set for me, and it's opened up all these other doors for like other things I want to do. So yeah,
it's quite a cool project because it's like I kicked it off and then ran out of time. So Dan continued it a bit and then ran out of time, and now you've picked up the baton, as you say. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
and now it's growing him out of his house.
Yeah, pretty much. You're gonna see my YouTube video of how I grew a year's worth of.
Well, there's a great old British show called The Good Neighbors, where they do that very thing. They turn their little plot in the suburbs into a farm. Might be worth checking out.
Right on. Will do.
All right.
Really cool.
Well,
thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for showing it off. Super cool. I'll go ahead and close it out here. And if anyone has any questions, like we said, just go ahead and post them on that forum post there, and we'll get them taken care of.
Is it that way? Or I'm pointing at John.
That way, I don't know which side.
Oh, banner went away. I see. Sorry, I was all tab. I was on a different screen.
All good. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See y'all.
So long.